Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of 5 of our Blender tips and tricks journey. This is the final stretch now, so let's dive straight in. Tip number 43 is just be aware of auto keying. So if we bring in a cube on the Y and then we say, yep, we want that there, and then at frame 24 we want it to move over here, like so, and then at frame 48 we want it to finish off down here. We can just basically select that and then we'll just bring it on the X so it definitely moves. What we will have is we'll have our animation of our cube just moving like so. So what we can also do is if we turn on auto keying, we can have another cube, and then just to be lazy we'll apply it there, then at frame 24 we want it to copy the exact location, and then at frame 48 copy the exact location again. So now we've got two cubes that follow each other. One thing that is a problem with auto keying is if we go to frame 72 and select our one that is permanently animated, and then we come over on the X and the Z, and then we keyframe this entirely, and then we jump to our other one and then we just copy it over like that, you'll see that the Y is unaffected. But now if we click play, we'll see that it starts to ascend on the Z, and that is because nothing happens with the Z because nothing changed, so it didn't feel the need to keyframe it. So basically pick your battles. It's a lot faster, but you could fall into this problem where if the Z doesn't move, for example, you will end up having a free space for it to start ascending, because when it does eventually move on the Z, it will just be doing that from frame 1. And then this brings us into tip 44, which is basically use interpolation. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a cube, and then we're going to move it all the way on the X at frame 100. So do all the way over there, and then what we should get is a basic animation that is a Bezier. It will speed up and then it will slow down, like so. If you want it to be more consistent speed, it can be linear, so we can make it move at a consistent speed, or we can even bring up our graph editor, which is here, and what we can do is we can add modifiers, for example. So we could make it noisy, we could add, so because we are only animating on the X, we can select the X there, we can increase the strength so it's more visible, and then we'll get this slow noise as it moves up towards the end. And we can also, if we want to make it a bit more subtle, we can stack them and we can, add two together. So now we've got our stepped noise. So if we want to turn off the noise because we want to see the stepped, we can just keep that, and then what it should look like is we are just slowly but surely, in fact if we just select this one and remove and Z and move because it's noise in general, we'll see that basically it is moving across in a juddery fashion as opposed to being smooth. Whereas if we select the X and then we can turn them both off, so we go back to being smooth, or we can have them both on with noise and stepped. So yeah, use interpolation because it can make animations really interesting as opposed to being the basic Bezier. Tip number 45 is if you're happy with an animation, bake it. So an example of doing that is, for example, if we bring in a curved circle and we just scale it up so we can see it, go into edit and then we subdivide it twice over like so, and then if we select all of our points and then go into checker deselect and then scale it in, we now have this weird shape. So what we can do now is we can bring in a cube, and if we go over to our constraint we can have it so we can make it follow this path. So on frame 1 we'll have it at 0, and then at frame 100 we can have it at 100, which basically just means 1 in this case. So now that we've done that, we can also bring in an empty, for example, plane axis, and then bring that over here and have it spin on the Z by 360 degrees, and then go back to frame 1 and make it so it's at 0, like so. Then we can add another object constraint, and this time we're going to do copy rotation, and then we want to bring that to the first one, and then hopefully we will have our cube spinning in a circle as well as going around this Bezier circle. So instead of Blender having to calculate exactly where it's going to be next, what we can do is basically duplicate it, just so we've got our originals. Go to Object, Animation, Bake Action, and we want visual keying because we want the final thing that it does, and we want to clear local constraints because once we've done it, we don't want it to have these anymore, and then we're going to put our end frame to 100. So that should bake relatively quickly, and if we have a look at this, we should be able to just, if we just cancel these out, that will go back to the start, and then this one should hopefully just play along because it's baked to keyframes. So definitely recommend doing that, especially if you have a lot of animations going on. So just like how we can bake our animation, we can also bake textures. So for example, if we were to bring over our shader editor and then we want to call this our baked texture, like so, and then say we have our UV grid, so if I type in UV grid, so we've got our UV grid here, and then if we go into our material texture, basically viewer, we can see this. And then on top of that, we want to bring in our dice texture as well. So it's either one or the other, but we can have them both on top of each other. So if we bring in a mix color node, like so, we can basically have it so that one's on top, that one's on the other. And if we go all the way to one, we get our dice. If we go to the other, we've got our UV grid. However, I want the dice to be a bit more defined, so we're going to use this to go into a color ramp. In fact, we don't even need the color ramp because it is black or white. So if we use that to drive the factor, we now have this. And then what we can do now is we can bring in an image texture, a blank one, and then we'll call this our baked die UV, like so. So we're going to make this blank and it's going to be disconnected. If we come over, so make sure you're in cycles as well, if we come over to bake down here, and then we could turn it into our diffuse, because that's what we've got. If we make it so it's color only, and then click bake, what we should get is if we go to our texture paint and look at our baked die UV, we've now got this. So if we click save as, and then put it in our textures, and this is now our baked die UV. So now we can either have that, or if we were to bring in another cube, and then what we can do is we can say this is now our baked test, bring in an image texture like so, we can connect it to our base color, and then if we open and go to our baked die UV, we've now got our baked texture here, and as you can see it's the one texture, whereas this one is two that are mixed into one. And then that's how we can bring in a baked texture. Tip number 47 is set your timeline. So as you can see, we have already done our animation to frame 100, so we can either come down here and type in 100 like so, because now that means that if we were to go into our object, for example, and then bake another animation, it already defaults to 100 frames as opposed to 250. So if I said 125 was our frame range, and then I'll come over here and click this and bake action, as you can see end frame is 125. So yep, set your frame range, and then hopefully you will have your animations as long as they need to be, and you won't end up with excessive frames. Tip number 48 is your format settings, such as your resolution, your FPS and your save location. So if, for example, we're down here and we've got our 100 samples viewport, 300 for our render, and we know that we want, say, I want 29.97 frames per second on average, the resolution's at 1920 and 1080, and then our output is typically temp, because anytime I make a new save location or a new file, I'll do my save there and then. But if you wanted them to always go into, say, folder name, Blender renders, then yeah, that is where you do that. And then what you can do is you can go to File, Default, and then Save Startup File. I'm not going to click that now because I like having my light camera and the default cube from the get-go. But basically, if you wanted to permanently have your frame rate for every Blender file at 29.97, set it and then go to, like I say, File, Default, Save Startup File. Tip number 49 is to render your viewport for faster feedback. So instead of actually rendering out everything, you can instead go to View, and Render Viewport Preview will give us a snapshot of what we see. There's no relevance to cameras, it is purely on our view as we see, and unfortunately the render preview doesn't actually work in this, as everything then just turns see-through essentially. So yeah, only really material preview or solid preview, like so. So keeping that on, what we also have to do is, because it is a render, we will have to change where our output is. So for example, if I go to our tips and then go into this and make a Blender render folder, and then I name this one viewport animation, and then accept it there. So now what we can do is go to render play blast, and then we'll basically get this. So because this is sort of a not too dense scene, I can get a good idea or indication of how this is playing at the minute, so nothing seems to be out of the ordinary. But if I did want to watch it, I just simply have to come over here, and then we've got our individual frames. If we sort by name, and then if we wanted to make it into a video, what we'd have to do is come down here and change it to video, like so. Our final tip, which is tip 50, is pay attention to your export settings. So this is a problem that you can easily run into, and it can catch you off guard. So we have all of these, but if I wanted to select my rocks, for example, because that is what I was working on at the time, if I go to File and Export and say it's an OBJ, what happens is it doesn't typically select the selection only at first, so you'd end up exporting this entire collection here. So always make sure that you've got your selection only selected if you only want that selection. And then yeah, if you want to triangulate your meshes, make sure you've selected that. I know that Unreal tends to triangulate your meshes anyway on import, but yeah, basically you can bring vertex groups, for example, PBR extensions. Just keep an eye on all these. There's different settings for different export file formats, and if you want a deeper dive into them, I have also already made a series on those. So a bonus tip or trick from me is, if you're a beginner, get used to using Polyhaven, or at least that's what I'd recommend, because Polyhaven supplies HDRIs, textures and models. So in our models we can basically download lamps. So if you're doing environment art, or you want to set up a desk, by the looks of it you've got the stool, you've got even your gas canisters. The other thing is, if you want HDRIs, I definitely get my HDRIs from here. So you can download them as an EXR, a HDR, 4K, 16K, 20K if you really needed to. And again, you can get textures from here as well. So you can get complete with normal maps as well. So you get this, you get the diffuse, you get the specular, the metalness, depending on what it is you're downloading, of course. But yeah, basically this is a powerhouse for basically getting stuff together. And what is interesting is, at the time of recording, they are doing Project Lighthouse, in which they are inviting 3D artists of all skill levels to collaborate and work alongside them. At the time of uploading this video, we've probably only got 2 weeks to go, so if you're interested, go for it. But otherwise, yeah, use this. And the last tip that you'll get from me before the end of this video is to definitely use the Blender documentation. This will give you everything you need to know about whatever it is that you're working on. Obviously I won't have covered absolutely everything in this video, because otherwise the video would be hundreds of hours long. I've basically done the bare essentials of what I would like to have known upon beginning. But yeah, basically if you're into physics, you can look at rigid body world, you can look at fluids, particle systems, dynamic paint. So yeah, definitely use the Blender 5.1 manual. And that concludes episode 5 of our Blender series of our tips and tricks. You should now feel more confident exploring and navigating Blender with a much faster and cleaner workflow. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.